I paid $650 for this box of customer returned electronics, but they were all listed as salvage, so these could all be broken or they could work just fine. So first we have these two Xbox Elite controllers. This one is in pretty rough shape. Overall, I paid $15 each for these. So, I mean, I can make money on this one even just selling it just as is. But I am not totally sure. These used to be really hard to find, these grips right here. So I'll have to see if I can find some of those. And then this one might actually be in decent condition. Let's see what's inside the box though. We have another controller. Oh, this one's like, ew, this one's like sticky. Definitely have some problems with the rubber grip here. Actually, this thing is very used. Somebody has also been inside of it, so it's been taken apart. This is not looking good for this one. So we'll have a look at these in a minute. This one's definitely in better condition as far as like not being gross and sticky. All right, I think these are probably worth $15 because I can resell them just as is for more than that. But let's see what else we have here. Next, we have an Xbox Series S. And this came in a lot with two other Xboxes. Oh, is that liquid? That could be bad. And more over here. That's not a good sign. So probably some liquid damage in here. This came in a lot with two Xbox Series X's, and it was just one price for all of them. So dividing up the prices between the three, it comes out to $165 each. So there's probably a better, more accurate way to do the pricing, but I'm just dividing it equally between the three. So I paid $165 for this. And next we have an Asus ROG Ally. This one has definitely been well used. It's pretty dirty, but I don't see anything like broken on it. So that's possibly good news. This one I paid $213 for. These go for $350 to $450 on eBay, so depending on what's wrong, that hopefully is a good deal. Next, we have a PlayStation 5 Disc Edition. This is the 1215 model, and it's not the PlayStation 5 Slim. I paid $75 for this. This came in the lot of PlayStation Portals, so I just divided up the total price between everything and it comes to $75 each. And the last item is this Xbox Series X that I paid $165 for. This one is super dirty on the outside. Can only imagine what the inside looks like. Let's see. Oh yeah, the fan is super dirty in this one. So I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna send this one over to Robert at Restorish and have him do a cleaning on this, and I'll save this one for last. So once he's done, then we'll come back to this when it's all cleaned. Now there's one other item that came in this lot that I'm gonna save for its own video, and that is this Xbox Series X. It looks just like a normal Xbox Series X, but if we look at the back, this one is a prototype. Now, I've never seen one of these in real life, and I've actually never seen a video on one of these. So I'm gonna save this one for its own video, and I'll be posting that in a few weeks. So if we can fix all of these, we can actually make a decent profit, but that's only if we can fix them and parts don't cost too much. I'm gonna go give this one to Robert over at Restorish right now, and we're gonna start with these two controllers and see if we can fix those. And here we have controller number one, the non-sticky controller hooked up to a gamepad tester. Looking at the analog sticks, they look good. Okay, check all the buttons. Good, good. I don't see any problems with this. Let's check these buttons on the bottom. Good, 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 and good. So I think the only problem with this is basically we've got the problem with the grips. And then obviously it doesn't actually have the buttons that go on like the two analog stick caps and then the D-pad cap. Let's test the sticky one and see what's going on with that one. I feel like that one's gonna be not good. Okay, we'll plug it in. It did buzz. And here it is up on the screen. Okay, we've got the left stick is not returning very well. So definitely a problem there. The A button and B button. I need to make a list of all this stuff we gotta do. Left A stick A and B buttons. Okay, what other things do we have going on here? D-pad works. Those buttons work. Let's check the buttons on the underside. Good. Good. And this P1 button. Oh, there we go. It actually works. It works if you push on it hard enough. So we're going to write that down as well. P1. Okay, now we know what we need to do. Let's get this thing taken apart and see if we can fix it. This thing is so sticky. Gotta be like some soda spilled in here or something. Listen to this. Ew. Okay, that's so gross. This analog stick cover just fell off. Oh, that guy's pretty smashed up. So is that one. Wow. Look at how just smashed that is. That is crazy. So those we're definitely going to have to replace. Nothing too crazy going on under the back cover that I see. We will need to take this off and look at P1. Okay, we definitely have some gunk here, but nothing too crazy yet. And everything is looking pretty good on that. I don't really see any major problems other than these analog sticks are just in pretty bad shape. There we go. And this piece is broken. Don't know, that shouldn't really matter, I don't think, but it is. Now this board can come off and out just like that. And as suspected, it is pretty dirty. So we got a lot of dirt and gunk over here, and yeah, these are pretty dirty too. Everything's just pretty dirty on this one. So the buttons we were having problems with were the A and B buttons. And I don't really see a huge problem with them. So it could have been just gunk. Yeah, I mean, these definitely don't look good, these button pads. So could have been just gunk in the button pads. But we'll clean this board up anyway. Now in order to replace these analog sticks, I want to remove this whole board, so I'm going to get these wires unsoldered and then we'll just have this board free. Now what we need to do is remove all of the solder out of these little joints right here. So I'm going to use some solder wick to do that. We need to get all those ones and all of these ones. So once again, we're going to flux them up. I'm just going to use some solder wick to wick up the solder off of these joints. And I think I'm going to use my hot air station. We're just not getting, I mean, solder wick can work and it does work on some of these joints, but I think hot air is just gonna, we're just gonna do better at getting those things off. So let's try that method and see how that works. All right, and there's that one. And we need to do the same with this one. There we go. There we go. And now with the analog sticks removed, I'm going to come through with my solder wick and suck up the solder out of those holes, or attempt to. Then we'll be able to place our new analog sticks. There we go. All right, and now with all those holes cleared, we can just set the new analog stick in, make sure all the holes are lined up. Looks like we're not getting a hole over here. There we go. Now do we have, yep, okay. They're all in there. Now we need to make sure it's on their level, just like that. And once it is, then we can solder this thing in. And of course I'm adding flux. Now we'll do the other side. And there we go. Now we just need to clean this all up, and then we can clean up all the buttons and get this thing reassembled. Okay, all cleaned up there. So let's clean up this board now. These buttons weren't having a problem, but I'm surprised. They're really dirty. Okay, that's actually looking pretty good for these. So I don't think there's any other problems on the board itself. I think we need to clean up the buttons and the button pads, and hopefully that's all this board needs. The button pad is pretty dirty. This is gonna really help, I think. Now let's get these buttons cleaned up. Yeah, the A button definitely has some, I don't know, buildup on it. Yep, same with the B button. And, oh, look at this. I just found that guy laying on my mat, so that must have fallen off of one of these boards. But which one? That's the question. Oh man, this could be hard to find. Yeah, this is definitely not obvious. Wait a second, we've got one over, yeah, it looks about that size. So is it missing from over here somewhere? Right there. I'm gonna come over and flux it up. There we go. And I just realized I don't know where that piece went. So I've got to find that, and then hopefully I'll be able to get it put back on. So I totally lost that piece. No idea where it is. Luckily, these are on other Xbox controllers. I've got a bunch of them sitting around that are just for spare parts, basically. So I just grabbed one off of a different controller for spare parts, and now I'm going to install it onto here. Okay, now with that installed, we can finally get this controller back together. So we'll get these buttons installed. Now that those are in, we can get the board installed. We can install this board. That all looks good. Now we need to solder these wires back on. I just figured out something that some of you guys have probably known for a while. This is not an Elite Series 2 controller. This is a Series 1 controller. The Series 2 does not have a removable battery cover, and it's also got USB-C. So this one is a Series 1, as is this one. The Series 1s are the ones that had these green buttons. That's the first thing that tipped me off. And I think this white piece is something that somebody just installed on there. I don't think that's the piece that goes here. So, unfortunately, this is not worth as much as I thought it would be worth. And it probably wasn't worth all that work I just did on it. But either way, we've already fixed it this far. We might as well finish the job. This is what that piece is supposed to look like, kind of all one piece that slides on there and snaps into place. All right, now that that is basically done, we need to clean off all the stickiness off of this top plate. And it is very sticky. So I'm just gonna come in with a paper towel. Something's coming off, that's disgusting. And this part is not coming off. I think the best thing to do here is just replace this piece, because it's going to be really hard to get all these little corners right in here. So let's get rid of this one and instead install this one. This one's got a little bit of gunk in the corners and whatever, but that's easily removable. Not that it's like a huge deal, but I mean, the box that came with this other one is a Series 2 box. So I feel like somebody replaced or returned a Series 2 box with a Series 1 controller, probably after they bought the Series 2 controller and essentially got a free one. Unfortunately, working with returns, that is what happens sometimes. Now we can install this. There we go. All right, given that this is not in amazing shape, I'm not going to spend the money to replace these side covers, these grips, because we're not going to get a ton of money for this anyway, and just replacing these is just going to make it so we get less money for it overall, because we'll be spending money on parts. All right, so that's back together enough to test. Let's test it and see if all that work made it work correctly. Okay, let's check A, B, good. Those buttons all work, these buttons work, those work, analog sticks work, and P1 and P3 don't register. I don't know if that's because they're programmed not to. I think that could be the case here, because they feel really good. And given that it's P1 and P3, I think that's the case. I'm not an expert on these, but I would guess that's what's going on here. So this controller at least I think is working good. I need to do some research and see if P1 and P3 can be programmed to not do anything when you press the buttons. Let's move on to the other Xbox Elite Series 1 controller with, as far as we can tell, just the bad grips. So for this one, this rubber is just peeling right off of these things. That's just crazy. Like, it's attached a little bit right here, but that's it. And the crazy part is this part is like stretched. It doesn't even fit in the same area anymore. If it was the same size, then we could like re-glue it or use some adhesive on it, but we just can't. And unfortunately, there's no way to replace that. Even if you have, so this is a good Elite Series 1 controller, and this is just bonded very tightly to that. So we can't just like peel it off of this and put it on this or anything like that either, because peeling this off will damage this one. So unfortunately on this, there's not really that much we can do for it. One thing I can do, since we have that Elite controller for parts that I used, we can take these off and then at least have grips on the side that are in better condition, just like this. There we go. So then at least it's not in as bad a condition. Still not great, obviously, but we should be able to still sell this for $30 to $50 as is, especially since it is working. Now this one, I feel like we'll be lucky to get our money back out of it. I would say we could probably get $15, $20 for it. So the two controllers, while we may make a little bit of money on it, really weren't that good of a deal because they're Elite Series 1s and not the Elite Series 2s. Let's move on to the Xbox Series S that I think is probably liquid damaged. Even though that's the case, I'm gonna plug it in and see if we get anything on the screen or if we get any power at all. I'm not gonna hook it up to HDMI yet since I feel like it's probably not gonna have power, but here we go, plugged in. Let's see, here we go, power button. Okay, so white light, all right, let me hook it up to HDMI and see if we get anything on the screen. Okay, and okay, we have the Xbox logo. I don't know what the spinning light of death means, but I'm a little worried about that. Oh, okay. So I think before we go any further, I do want to take this apart since it looks like soda spilled on the outside. Let's get it apart and look at the inside and make sure there's none in there. And then we'll start it up again when we're done and see if it starts up normally. These are just T8 screws, not security Torx, which is surprising. I think this just slides off. Oh, look at all that stickiness there. It's not gonna slide off with that there. Oh my goodness. Look at that, so gross. It dripped all the way. Holy cow, this is so, okay. That's gonna be disgusting, I can already see. Oh man, and it probably dripped into the console from there, but this board right here is so bad. This is gonna be interesting. It is just soda, right? Okay, here we go. So the dark green screws will let this whole thing come out of the top shell. All right, with those screws out, I think we can take this top piece off. Yep, there we go. Okay, so that actually doesn't look too bad from there. It looks like the soda came in from here and dripped all the way down to the bottom. Okay, here's the board I was talking about. Look at that. That is absolutely disgusting. Just like pooled right there. So it dripped down from here and then down here, but I'm sure some of it probably went inside. The rest, the front, this little board is fine. This little board looks okay. So let's get all these little boards off and then take off the top piece and check out the inside. But first, we're gonna need some gloves for this one. So probably the Wi-Fi and maybe Bluetooth weren't working on this one. I mean, it is possible that this board works, but it's just, look at that. It even got to the back side and it's just all even right around the metal here. Okay, we'll clean this off in a little bit, inspect it and see what we think. Oh man, we got stickiness around the bottom edge right here, but I don't think it's affected the board itself. Okay, and this board, let's see if there's any stickiness here. No, we're good. This board's totally good. Okay, and now we should be able to get, yep, this top plate loose. The fan is the fan supposed to be connected to it? I feel like it's not. Maybe it is. Nope, it's not. Okay. The top plate actually doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty clean, so we're good there. The fan actually looks good too. I don't see any problems with the fan. Let's check the power supply. It's sticky here. The power supply definitely works. Oh, you know what? That's not sticky. It's my gloves. Look at that. Seriously. So power supply is good. No problems there. And I feel like, yeah, the liquid came in from here. So what we need to do is check this part of the motherboard here on the top and bottom. So let's get the board out. Okay, let's see the bottom side. Okay, not too bad. That's good. Okay, I have hopes for this. We got to get this clamp off, and then we can inspect under where the heatsink is and see if there's any liquid damage over here. So far, I don't see anything on the board. This is great news on this metal piece. So that's great news, but we do need to clean off this shell right here. All right, and with the clamp off, we should be able to get the heatsink off. Heatsink looks good, and the board looks good. How is that possible? Somebody is like the luckiest person ever. There's just absolutely nothing on the board. I'm not even sure how that's possible. That is amazing. Okay, well, let's get this thermal paste replaced, and then we'll get the cleaning done on the case. But this is surprisingly not liquid damaged. I love it when this happens. All right, so I'm gonna get this thermal paste cleaned up. We'll get it replaced with, obviously, the perfect amount, and then we'll move on. And now I'll apply the perfect amount of thermal paste. Come on, right there. Perfect. Now I'll reinstall the heatsink and the clamp, and then we'll start getting that case cleaned up. All right, so this is probably the worst part. So what I'm gonna do is just get some isopropyl alcohol and a cotton swab. And I'm just gonna soak this really good just to start loosening this stuff. I mean, this is so sticky. So this is definitely discolored, but all the stickiness is gone off of there. So I'm not worried about that anymore. We've got a little bit more up here to do, but this is looking pretty good now. I'll clean the rest of this off camera. Let's move on to the other plastic piece. Now we get to clean this one, and this is gonna be fun. It's all in these little holes up here, all in these little holes over here, and then in these little cracks right here. This is gonna be pretty difficult. The good news is that most of this looks to be still like a little bit liquid and not as kind of like dried on as the other stuff. This part though, I'm not sure how I'm gonna clean these out. I think I found just the ticket. I've got these pointed kind of like cleaning swabs. They're like the foam kind. So I should, yeah, I can get in each one of these. Yep, we're gonna need to use some more of those, which is fine. I've got a whole bag. Okay, and we're almost done. I've got a little bit more to do here and then along the edges, and I feel like you can't even see it on the camera, or very little. You can see a little there, but I promise, guys, it's way dirtier than it looks. Trust me, bro. This side is a little more obvious. A lot more soda in these, so I'm not sure how this is gonna go. And then we'll come through with our fancy cotton bud. And now we just have this piece left. We're gonna go ahead and just speed through this since we've done a ton of cleaning in this video already. And honestly, I'm gonna be tired of watching this through after my editor is done with it. So I think you guys are probably gonna be bored of it too if I keep cleaning this much. So we'll speed through this part, then we'll get to the reassembly. Okay, that's not perfect, but it's definitely way better than it was and nothing sticky. So we're gonna call that good. And just for reference, this is how many cleaning buds we used. Oh man, so gross. Okay, And let's see. Oh yeah, we can just like scrape some of this off. Look at that. Just so much grossness on this thing. All right, I've gotten a lot of it off. Now we need to get into this with our cotton swab and isopropyl alcohol and just get all of the rest of that gunk off of there. All right, so this still needs to dry, but this is looking a lot better. I'm not convinced. In fact, I'm pretty convinced it probably won't work because I think there's a lot of soda buildup under this BGA, but let's put it all back together and give it a try. So here we go with the main motherboard going in. Now the power supply can go in. And next the fan. Now the top metal plate. And with those screws in, we can get the two boards that have not been liquid damaged installed. There's one and the other one. The board that was liquid damaged the most, or at all I guess, is going to go right here. And now it's back together enough to test. So I'm going to get this thing started up and see if this board works and if there are any problems with the console. Okay, we got it all hooked up. Power button is right there. We got a white light. The fan is not spinning. Okay, there we go. We have fan spin. Okay, everything's looking good so far. Let's see if a controller will connect. Yep. Okay. But we got to see if it's going to connect to Wi-Fi. All right, A button. There we go. English. Choose a connection, and there is nothing. Yeah. Okay, so we definitely have to replace that little board. So I'm going to get a replacement, and we'll install that, and then see if we can get a network to show up. Okay, here we have our replacement board. Just going to get that plugged in. All right, here we go. Now with our new board, let's see what happens. Good so far. Ah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to get this all connected to my Wi-Fi, and then we'll see if we have any other problems with it. So I went through the updating and setup process, and this Xbox Series S is all fixed up. Let's move on to the ROG Ally and see what's wrong with that one and if we can fix it. So here we have the ROG Ally. Let's see what happens when we try to turn it on. We got some power, that's good. The screen works, also good. Definitely taking some time to start up though. I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning on this while it's starting up. Oh, here we go. What do we have? Looks like it's reinstalling the operating system. There's a problem that's keeping us from getting our PC ready to use. We think an update will help. Sure. Sounds good. Okay, so I need to enter the network password, but there's no way to do that. On-screen keyboard is turned off. None of those buttons work. Oh boy. Okay, so I feel like probably the only way to do this, maybe I can hook up an external keyboard, hopefully? I'm gonna give that a try and see if that'll work. And I don't have a USB-C keyboard right handy right now. So I just press skip this step. Let's see what happens. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Okay, let's see. Looks like we're connected, that's good. Accept, name your device. Okay, starting up again. Okay, what do we got here? Looks like the only option is to sign in. All right, and now that Microsoft is done trying to sell me on 37 different things, I think it's almost set up. And just we're gonna do some calibration so I can test this right stick. And if you notice, it goes up and down fine. There is nothing left and right. Let's try the other one. Let's try the left stick. Left, right, up, down. So that works fine. This one definitely does not. So I think we need to open it up, see if this one can be cleaned or anything. It doesn't feel like bad, so I feel like I might just need to replace this, but let's get it opened up and find out. And this should just come apart now. I think, yeah, there we go. Okay, and there we go. That cover is off. This has definitely been opened before. So this is the stick that we're worried about here. And just kind of looking at it, I don't see any issues just from looking at it. So let's take it apart further. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. Okay, and that whole module just comes right off. And I don't see any issues at all on this little board. I don't see any issues, so I think what we need to do is replace this stick, and then we'll see if that issue is gone. Okay, so this is the original that's not working. So we'll remove it. I'm going to try replacing the analog stick itself first and see if that fixes it. If not, then we might just replace this whole board. Okay, there we go. And now we will install this one that I actually don't know 100% sure that it's working, but I'm pretty sure it's a working one. It's from a video I did a while back trying to fix an ROG Ally, and I was actually not able to fix it. So now I'll use it for parts. Okay, that looks good. Flip that locking tab down. One thing I will say, to Asus's credit, these are easy to fix and pretty modular overall. It is nice that this analog stick itself just unscrews and a new one you can just screw on, and that should be it theoretically if that was the problem. So now we'll put this back in and see if that fixed it. Okay, there we go. All right, and powering on. Okay, starts up, that's good. Okay, so we've got the arrow right there in the middle. Up works, down works, left works, and right works. So it looks like our Asus ROG Ally just needed the analog stick replaced, and this one's all fixed up. Got to do a little cleaning on it, but it's basically ready to sell. Now that this is done, let's move on to our PlayStation 5. And I can already tell one of the things that's wrong is the HDMI port is bad. Let's plug it in and see if it starts up and goes to the white light though. So we won't be able to get anything on the screen, but we can at least see if it turns on and takes a disk and stuff like that. Disk drive has power. Power button comes on. Let's see if it takes a disk. It does. See if the disk spins up. I hear it spinning up. Okay. Does it eject? And yes, it does. And it did just turn to white, so that is great news. I think the HDMI is probably the only problem with this. Let's get it all torn down, have a look at that port, and get it replaced. All right, and here we go, plates. Oh my goodness, that is disgusting. It doesn't smell, it's got a little bit of smoke smell. Not too much though, I'm surprised. Let's see how bad the rest of the console is. And the APU, I am actually not seeing a dry spot on the APU. That's surprising. All right, let's have a look at this HDMI port and get the repair done. So we can see that there's definitely a lot of damage on the metal part on the front side. Let's look at the pins on the back side. And I actually don't see any damage there. That's good news. That means that this should be a pretty straightforward, just drop the old one out and put the new one in. So let's get the repair done. So the first thing I'm going to do here is prep these pads. And if I pre-tin these pins, then they will stick to the pads on the motherboard much easier and faster. And I'm just trying to heat up this whole port and all the pins evenly, so it's all ready to drop out all at the same time. It looks like it's ready to drop out like it is, but it's not quite dropping out. Sometimes I'll push up on it just a little bit, and that will align the pins, so then the port will just fall out. Now I'm going to keep all of the mounting pins warm while I bring the new port in and slide it up and in. And then make sure everything's nice and hot, then remove the heat and wait for about, I don't know, 20 to 30 seconds. That will allow the solder to solidify. Now let's have a look under the microscope and see how we did. All right, and this port looks basically almost, kinda, sorta perfect. Those pins are all soldered on nice and solidly. And this thing is all fixed and ready to be put back together. Liquid metal looks good, so we're gonna just put the board back in. If I can get it oriented correctly, just like that. Got to make sure these ribbon cables are on top of the board. There we go. Same with these ones. There we go. Now the clamp. Next, the metal plate. With all those screws in, we can get all of our cables hooked back up. And now the disk drive can come over. Then we can install this plastic piece. There we go. And with those screws tightened down, let's get the fan cleaned. So here we go with the fan. Route the cable through, plug the cable in, place the adhesive over the cable, the adhesive cover. There we go. And all of our screws are in place, so we can just kind of set it down on there. All the screws go right in their holes. And then of course the grill needs to go in. Bottom plate, top plate on. Okay, all plugged in. Does the disk drive have power? Yes, it does. Does the console have power? There we go. Let's see if we get anything on the screen. Black screen. Come on. Okay, black screen, and there we go. So I'm gonna get this updated and set up just to make sure everything's working, but it looks like our PS5 is now working. We only have one more device to go, and that's the Xbox Series X that Robert from the Restores channel just got done cleaning. Let's have a look at that next and see if there's anything wrong with it and if we can fix it. And this is that very same Xbox after Robert over at Restores got finished with it. It is looking so nice and clean. I don't know if it even works though. Robert didn't test it, but let's plug it in and find out. Okay, plugged in. Let's see if we got power. And we do. Black screen. And there we go. Okay, we've got it all set up. Let's see if it will play a disc. Takes it in, spinning up. Good so far. And there we go. So the disk drive even works. So it looks like this Xbox Series X must have just been dirty, and that seems to be the only problem with it. So I'm not super happy with the two controllers as far as how they turned out, but the rest of these all were fixed and working really well now. If you want to buy TronicsFix merch, you can go right to TronicsFix.com and buy the shirt that I'm wearing now, plus a lot of other really cool designs. I'll put a link in the description that'll take you right there. And if you want to see this Xbox Series X get nice and cleaned over on the Restores channel, I'll link to that video now so you can click on that and go hang out with Robert and watch it get cleaned. Thanks so much for watching today, and I hope you have a good one.